everyone, I'm Jessica, here to talk about another solo game today, and this one I am super excited about because it has been so unique and so fun to play, and that game is called Far Away! And I love the tagline on the front of this box. At the very bottom, it says, boldly go where no one has returned from yet, which is exactly correct. So what is Far Away? First up, Far Away is listed as a 2-player only game. Where is it? Boop, boop, boop. But it's a 2-player co-op, which usually means you can play it solo, and this is easy to play and modify for solo. You're just playing as 2 explorers. And the idea here is that you are explorers going on a series of missions across a campaign to uncharted planets, exploring those. You have different objectives as each mission has you doing something a little bit different. But the real heart of the game is what happens on those planets. But first, let me talk about the explorers real quickly and just kind of the general idea of the game. So the explorers are usually marked by these 2 pretty simple counters or tokens that go on the board. I modified this for myself because it's me. So in my campaign, I have my calico critters, of course. So there's Captain Catherine, who is just what you think. She has completely everything under control. She's thrown everybody off, though. Red shirt? Not quite. She is not a red shirt. The red shirt, in disguise, is Ensign Samuel. This guy is causing so many problems. But there is an awesome ongoing storyline that I've kind of uncovered as I've been playing with them. So if you see any of my reports, they show up in there, but the standard game, you will have these different tokens, which are a little bit different. So the explorers have their own boards, and you will see that you will be marking loneliness and hunger. So these are kind of simple needs that you need to meet. So if they are moving away from each other and going on different hexes, they're going to get lonely over time. There's no one to socialize with. So you can kind of go mad from space madness or whatever. So there's kind of a goal to sort of meet back up. So even though exploring the entire area with these different hex tiles, again, these will look like these. There's different terrain types and all types of things that you can find out there. You really want to keep them kind of close together because loneliness is not good. And then there's also 3 actions that they can take during a turn. I don't want to get too much into the mechanics of it, though. It's not a very rules-heavy sort of game because, like I said, as the explorers are going around on these missions and these planets, the real heart of this is the ecosystem and the creatures. And it actually brings in role-playing to board games a little more than some other ones. And when I say that, you probably think, oh, I'm role-playing as the explorers, right? Nope. They play part of a role there, but the real, how do I want to call it? I say it's the heart of the game, but it really is how the creatures in the ecosystem interacts. So on each planet, you will start off with a crash site because the Federation Alliance doesn't have the budget to give you landing gear. So you'll always crash and you always have to repair it. There's this underlying kind of funny jokes and some puns and everything is an acronym. So hex tiles, that's not just a hex tile. It has where is it? What is it? An heuristically explorable xenoterrain. That's what hex stands for. And there's a fun thing in the rulebook in the back to explain that. But what is this ecosystem that you're dealing with? So there are going to be a maximum of 4 den creatures and 4 wandering creatures on each planet. So a maximum of 8 creatures. A den creature is simply a creature that has a home or a nest or a den that they usually spawn from and kind of protect and kind of move out from that area. Whereas wandering creatures don't have a set home, so they're kind of moving around a little bit more. Let me show you what some of those creature cards look like, though. And they are pretty awesome. So, this one was cool. They're all cool. But this is an example of a den creature, which from the image you might say that doesn't look too nice, but you actually have to read a little bit about it. So each card will have the name, it'll have a description, sometimes a special ability that creature can perform. And then at the very bottom, there's a lot of icons, which become pretty easy to understand over time. This is telling me this is an herbivore. It prefers a canyon space and usually moves in an area around 2 hexes. It goes in small groups, so it usually moves in 2 to 3. It is, what is an X? An X, I should know this, but I believe that one is they're kind of passive. They don't really do that much, as opposed to an aggressive creature. And they're a den creature. So I could have this one that comes out on the board, and this one, there's not really any threat. They're nice. I could have a wandering creature too. This is one of my favorites. This is a wandering creature, and the cool thing about this one, if I can get it on here, it has a special ability that actually it tries to produce resources to offer as gifts to other creatures, sometimes the explorers. But the one thing you have to remember about this is that the explorers crash land on this planet, but this planet's ecosystem has been around for a long time. So it's not going to be beneficial to the explorers in every case. Creatures are going to kind of interact with each other all on their own, and the explorers are kind of there, and they will, take advantage of either attacking them if they're an aggressive species, or maybe checking them out. But for the most part, that ecosystem has been there for a while. So you can see like these two might be on the same planet, and how would they interact? You can kind of think about that. I love the role-playing aspect of this and thinking out what each creature will do, how the ecosystem will work. The publisher, though, does have downloadable AI cards on their website. So what those do is for each species, you actually have a set behavior as you kind of roll dice to randomly determine what they'll do, but it tells you what to do. So if role-playing isn't really your thing, but you're really into kind of the missions and the idea behind this of exploring planets and creatures, that might be a way to play. Let's see, so the missions themselves. There's a fun missions contract book that goes through what each mission is and how it has individual setups and everything. I did the tutorial twice. You might say, why? It actually specifically does not recommend doing the tutorial multiple times. However, my first time, I played the game wrong. And by doing that, what was I doing? I was looking at, I had the 8 creatures, 4 den creatures, 4 wandering creatures. There's a lot. There's a deck of these, and there's all different types of creatures. There's matching tokens that will go out on the hexes. But what I did was I just played through each card. So I would just go through when the creatures activate, because there's a very nice round sequence here that tells you what to do, what your options are, and then also what drones will do, what creatures will do, some other things. And I just realized I have not been looking at it. There's a double side here. Well, that helps so much. I looked this up in the rule book all the time. So good to know it's been sitting there right in front of me this entire time. But back to what I did wrong. I looked at those creature cards and I said, okay, this one, den creature 1, it's going to do this. Okay, den creature 2, it makes sense to do this. Den creature 3, 4. I just went with what each individual creature would do, which isn't inherently wrong. But what I didn't take into account was, how does this ecosystem work? So I ended up with swarms of creatures that just built up, and it didn't make any sense. From a logical standpoint, from a biological standpoint, an ecosystem standpoint, they could not sustain themselves. They could not find enough food, so it didn't make sense. Plus, my play kind of went on and on and on because I didn't do exploration correctly. I don't think this is really a spoiler or a strategy tip, but if you find a safe area, don't explore around said safe area because there's a chance it will then become an unsafe area. I learned that the hard way, and Samuel, my explorer, is the one who always will explore on the last action of his turn and cause problems. So I ended up actually stopping the tutorial after about 2 hours. It was just kind of dragging on, but I could see what I had done wrong there. So I reset it, kept the creatures the same, kept a lot of things as, similar as I could, and it came to life. The ecosystem actually worked. We didn't have swarms. I had the explorers actually go in, and if there was a dangerous swarm that threatened a building, they went in and scared those creatures off. you can typically scare or fight, which is kind of an attack against creatures. I prefer to do the scaring them. It's just safer. And I really loved the game as I got into that and saw the tutorial. The missions themselves are all very unique. They have different objectives and they're completely different. So right now, I'm just going to say this whole thing has been spoiler free up to this point. It hasn't really said anything. I am going to kind of generally spoil the first few missions and just talk about what those entail, not giving away the specifics. But if you do not want to hear that, there's going to be a little skip here that you can do to go to the next section after that spoiler. So pause right now if you don't want spoilers, if you like surprises in your games. Otherwise, feel free, keep listening, because I'm not giving away exactly what happens in every single one. But here come the spoilers. So mission 1 is about setting up an outpost. So this is really about teaching how to gather resources and figure out where to put buildings and get everything going there. I had it was a pretty nice area. There wasn't anything too dangerous going on. And it worked out pretty nicely. So it was good, aside from the fact that Samuel went and he found a dinosaur species that bit him, and he picked up an injury that was a bloodborne pathogen. And once the mission ended, I said, should I keep that going? That feels like an ongoing storyline that he picked up something. Before I could make that decision, the game made it for me because the second mission was just perfect. This is about there is some type of virus that is being spread around all of the colonies, and you need to go and figure out a vaccine for it. Samuel did it. There's no doubt about it in my mind. That is where it stemmed from. So this one was more about actually going onto a planet and setting up a kind of a medical bay to create a vaccine and test things. And there was actually an interesting sort of ethical question in there about, do you test the creatures or do you test it on yourselves? Just a question, and again, this is where the mission contingencies come in. So there's up to 4 different sort of branching storylines, but they're more like objectives or goals that happen either based on your decisions or events that actually happen in the game. So luckily we survived. And then I read mission 3, and I got a kick out of it because mission 3 is about creating a preserve where the elite can send kind of hollow drones to go around to look at species that you have put inside enclosures. And the goal here is to leave it on its own and have drones kind of run it. I immediately said, this is like a Jurassic Park situation. And I actually had it happen. There is one contingency in the game that if it happens, the enclosure everything breaks out of the enclosure, they turn aggressive, things could go horribly wrong. Luckily, it happened at the perfect time when I could just fix everything up. But it was just a really memorable moment too. And now I'm getting ready to play mission 4. And again, there are 8 missions. Mission 4 is about a legal situation where the Federation has gone onto a planet that is actually owned by a private company or individual, and we need to scrub all signs that the Federation was there. I am very excited to continue on with this. But that is it. So that's the end of the spoilers there. But I am having such a wonderful time with this game. It is a really nice mix of role-playing in a very unexpected way in board games. And what I mean by unexpected is that who would think that role-playing an ecosystem was a thing or would be a thing that would be fun? But I mean, look at these creatures. Like they're and it's fun to see the new ones that come out each but sometimes, during the game as you explore, you will roll a die. Where's my exploration die? So there's all different things that will come up there. So you might get an anomaly. So there could be a ruin, or that could be a den or something else. A watering hole that has a parasitic fungus that suddenly throws the entire food chain off. Yes, had that happen to me. You might find some resources. You might find a wandering creature. What else? And then there's a resource production area. So you could be in the forest and you could either pick up a resource cube, or there might be like a plant robe that you could use to actually do some more. I haven't even covered everything that's in this game. There are buildings that you can put out there. There are ways to domesticate creatures. So for instance, you've got tokens for all of them. They will look like this when they come out. However, if you manage to domesticate one, you flip it over and they can actually help you out. So it's kind of like a pet. Can help with loneliness. They can go and pick up resources. It's just really cool. And so during the campaign too, I should say, I won't give away, there's ongoing rewards or consequences based on what happens. But then you also have this store where you can actually spend the credits that you earn to do some cool things and affect missions in the future. And also just to show you how many creatures there are. These are the den creatures. So there's, and you're only going to see 4 of these per game. And the same amount of wandering creatures. It's just so cool. And it kind of has an old school, sort of vintage feel to it. It's a newer game. I know I often talk about ones that are out of print. This one was recently reprinted as of the filming of this video, so it's available. And I don't know, I love the aesthetic of it. Like some of the hex tiles that you're going to explore, you might say, yeah, they don't look super detailed and it might not be your artwork style, but I think it all works so nicely together. Where are some of my other cards here? So again, I won't give it away, but this is what some of the mission cards will look like. So you'll complete them and flip them over to see what happens. But then, you've got 3.2, 3.3, and you just keep going through the mission to try to complete it. There's so much stuff. See? Medical facility, which I can build if I get all those resources, and then I can help out and do some things. There are creatures that will attack buildings and potentially destroy the crash site / your ship, and should that happen, the mission's over. Explorers can have 1 injury. Samuel always has an injury at this point. But 2 injuries means death, so you don't want that to happen. And I love this game. It's so different from anything that I have in my collection. The price point wasn't crazy, and I am getting so much fun out of it. So, and again, the one thing that I know a lot of times with campaign or mission-based games is, can I play it again? Yes, I can totally see me going through this entire campaign again because the creatures are really where things happen. So you're going to have a lot of different possible combinations that come out there. There's a lot. Again, I'm just showing off some of these and what they look like and what they do. But again, it's not about the individual creatures. It's how they all interact together to bring that world to life, to set up different challenges for those explorers, different dangers. And some of the planets I've come across have been very peaceful, sort of herbivores who have their own things going on, but it's not so simple to gather resources, and something will always happen. So that, again, is Far Away, a game that I am absolutely loving. As always, thanks so much for watching, and take care. Bye!